Single dad's bag searched by CEO. What his mother revealed next left everyone shocked and inspired. The bell on the shop door jingled, and Jake barely had time to look up from the engine he was disassembling. Mr. Thompson, the CEO of Thompson Motors, strode in with an air of authority, sharp eyes scanning the space like a predator seeking prey. In an instant, curiosity shifted to dread as Jake's heart quickened. He hadn't expected to see someone like him in his tiny auto repair shop. "Can I help you?" Jake asked, trying to suppress the tremor in his voice. "I need a service on my car," Thompson replied dismissively, still eyeing the clutter around them. "But I want to see how you run this place first." With sweaty palms and a racing mind, Jake felt the scrutiny of the customers surrounding them. Whispers floated through the air, punctuated by sideways glances. They were once his friends, but now they watched with disdain, as if he were a boy caught in a childish mistake. The implications of a large man like Thompson inspecting his work rattled him. He was a father trying to provide for his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, not a trained monkey for entertainment. The tension escalated when a security guard ambled through the door behind Thompson, a signal that something bigger was at stake. Jake's heart fell to the floor as the guard approached him. "Sir, we'll need to check your bag," he said, an edge of authority in his tone. The bag slumped against the wall behind him, fraying straps and smudges of grease betraying years of hard work and dedication. Jake quickly glanced around, seeing pity in some eyes but judgment in many others. This wasn't just about a bag search, it was about the judgment he faced as a single dad at the mercy of fortune, or lack thereof. A rush of emotions swirled in him: humiliation, anger, helplessness, and his mind raced to Lily. The look of disappointment on her face would haunt him. Would this be the moment that defined his worth? Before the guard could reach him, he hesitated, his body taut with anxiety. The whispers around him echoed louder: "It's just a flunky repairman. He'll never amount to anything." Each comment was a jab to his already wounded pride. He wanted to scream back, to prove he wasn't just a mechanic but an innovator, just like his mother had always believed. His mother, the engineer who filled their home with optimism and dreams. Why was he letting fear win? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The guard's hand reached out for his bag, and Jake felt his throat tighten. The anticipation of exposure held a crushing weight. All the dreams tucked within the seams of his worn canvas bag suddenly felt so fragile. He forgot about the grime beneath his nails, the engine he'd been salvaging. Instead, all his thoughts consumed him. What if they uncovered failure? What if they saw a man clinging to a past that no longer served him? The moment stretched into infinity, and the heat of humiliation burned at his cheeks. As the guard unzipped the bag, Jake's mind spiraled. Among the old tools, threadbare sketches, and blueprints his mom had left behind, he knew that something from his past would soon be laid bare. Would he get the chance to reclaim that legacy, or see it permanently dismissed alongside his dignity? Standing on the precipice of potential and judgment, Jake felt a fierce resolve bubbling inside him, a need to reforge his identity against the tide of derision. Would Mr. Thompson see something in him that others failed to recognize? As the guard pulled out a blueprint, Jake's world teetered. Palpably on the edge, wondering if this would be the end of everything he had fought for or the start of something entirely new. As the security guard drew out the blueprint, Jake's breath hitched in his throat. The paper unfolded like a pent-up secret, exposing not just designs but the remnants of his aspirations, a custom vehicle concept he had sketchily outlined years ago, inspired by his mother's unwavering belief in his potential. It was unfinished, rough around the edges, but alive with possibility. "What's this?" Mr. Thompson's expression morphed from mere curiosity to genuine interest, his brows slightly furrowing as he examined the lines on the paper. Jake's heart pounded, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Here lay an opportunity, a sliver of redemption to redefine how the people around him saw him, and more importantly, how he saw himself. "It's a project," Jake managed to say, the words tumbling out as he struggled to gather his thoughts. "Something I worked on while I thought maybe one day." The words faltered, but the intensity of his drive flowed through the confession. Thompson's gaze bore into him, dissecting the vulnerability radiating off Jake. "One day what?" Jake felt the weight of the question, testing his mettle. Did he dare say it aloud, face the judgment of this imposing figure? The stares of bystanders sank heavy on his shoulders, but the desire to break free from the label of a failure screamed louder than his fears. "I wanted to innovate, make cars more accessible, environmentally friendly. My mom was an engineer, she taught me to dream bigger." A flicker of appreciation flashed across Thompson's face, but it was mercurial, dissipating quickly into neutrality. "Engineering, you say? And how's that been working out for you?" Jake swallowed hard, suddenly feeling smaller. "Not very well right now, I suppose." The guard returned the blueprint to Jake's bag, then took a step back, visibly easing, as if he had realized there was more to this scene than an obligatory search. The murmurs began to die down around him, replaced by a flickering sense of uncertainty among the onlookers. They were silently calculating what this moment could mean, a damaged reputation being rehabilitated right before their eyes. The stray threads of hope that had been torn during this confrontation began weaving into something sturdy. Jake felt the contours of a plan forming in his mind. "Thompson Motors is at the forefront of innovation, perhaps I could contribute?" The words slipped out before he could think twice, fueled by an undeniable buried conviction. Thompson's inscrutable gaze softened momentarily. "Contribute how? You believe you could work on this?" "Yes. I could. I have ideas," Jake stammered, his confidence swelling. This wasn't just bravado. For once, he felt conviction rise amid the chaos. "Prove it." Thompson's voice was firm, yet a hint of curiosity lingered in his tone. "Bring me a refined design and maybe we can talk. You have until Friday." With that, he turned, the tension dissipating as swiftly as it had built. Jake watched him walk out, the air around him suddenly lighter but charged with urgency. This moment was a pivot, not just a fleeting opportunity, but a chance to reshape his narrative. He had until Friday. Just a few days to transform his dreams into reality. Potential now lay interlocked with his determination. He stood still for a heartbeat, realization washing over him. The fear that had gripped him moments before had begun to melt away. A single blueprint had unearthed a reservoir of ambition he had long buried. But lurking just below the surface was the quiet dread. Could he truly summon the energy, the creativity needed to rise to this challenge? As he peered at the task ahead, he felt exhilaration mingling with uncertainty. Would he rise to it, or would the weight of his inadequacy come crashing down once more? As he wiped his sweat-drenched palms on his coveralls, a new question flickered in his mind like a beacon in darkness. Was he ready to demonstrate the fullness of his potential? The cacophony of skepticism echoed faintly around him, but a counter-melody of hope began to rise. With a wave of determination flooding his being, he grabbed a pencil and set to work. The time had come to redefine not only his career but the very essence of who he was as a father, innovator, and man. The clock was ticking, and Friday felt both daunting and exhilarating. The challenge before him had begun, and he could feel the spark of transformation igniting. But as ideas flitted and formed in his mind, one question stood like a mountain: what if he failed to deliver? Would the leap into the unknown be a catalyst for greatness, or push him deeper into the abyss of doubt? Jake plunged into his work with fervor, the weight of the blueprint pressing against the desk, a physical reminder of the urgency pulsing through his veins. The hours stretched before him like an unending road, but this time, instead of daunting, it felt exhilarating. He spread out different sheets of paper, each covered with sketches and calculations, his palms smudged with graphite, a tangible marker of his resolve. The room was quiet, except for the scratching of his pencil, the rhythmic sound almost meditative. Each line he drew brought clarity to the chaos in his mind: a vehicle design with sleek curves aimed at enhancing aerodynamics, accompanied by innovative ideas to integrate solar panels into the body for a cleaner energy source. But with creativity came an unwelcome visitor: doubt. As soon as Jake laid out one idea, the shadows of skepticism would remind him of his failures. Thoughts seeped in, gnawing at the edges of his concentration. Did he even possess the ingenuity to create something worthy of Thompson's attention? Would his aspirations translate into anything tangible? His mind spun back to the moment with Thompson, how he had dared to utter those ambitious words. Each night spent toiling in obscurity felt like a betrayal to that momentary spark of courage. Jake lowered his head, reevaluating each sketch, the blood pulsing loudly in his ears like a countdown. A sudden ping from his phone broke the silence. Text from Cooper, his son, animated and overflowing with youthful excitement, flooded the screen. "Dad, did you see the new car toy? It has solar panels like you always talk about. Can we build a model together?" That simple message acted like a jolt of electricity within him. Cooper's innocent enthusiasm grounded Jake, swirling in a nostalgia that propelled him forward. He wasn't just doing this for himself, he was fighting to give his son a father he could be proud of, one who dared to pursue what others deemed impossible. Revisiting the sketches, Jake shifted from doubt to deliberation. What if I take the ideas a step further? He muttered to himself, his voice growing steadier with each word. He recalled his mother's teachings: innovation does not succumb to fear, it thrives on resilience. Merging the practicality of eco-friendly materials with an appealing design, he sketched a prototype that could not only entice eco-conscious consumers but also appeal to families. "Jake," he murmured, "you can do this." Repeated affirmations began to drown out the inner critic. Time dwindled, nights blended into mornings as he meticulously crafted and recrafted, refining the design with each rough draft he discarded. Each sunrise brought a fresh perspective, and he refined his pitch alongside visual elements, pulling in technology that resonated emotionally with potential users. On the eve of the deadline, exhaustion weighed heavily on his bones, but so did an undeniable sense of accomplishment. He had poured everything: his ambition, his vulnerabilities into this project, and now, he awaited the final culmination of his efforts. The hours spent felt almost like a rite of passage, an unveiling of hidden capabilities he had long dismissed. The morning of Friday dawned bright and clear, but instead of basking in the sunlight, Jake felt the shade of anxiety creep in once more. What if the effort he poured into this prototype ended up being a failure? What if he couldn't articulate the depth of his vision to Thompson? Doubts flickered through his mind like quicksilver. He held the completed design tightly within his hands, a lifeline to his aspirations. Steeling himself, he stepped out, a renewed sense of purpose igniting within him. This was more than just an idea, it represented his struggle, his growth. Jake's fingers trembled slightly as he approached the office building where Thompson awaited. A deep breath steadied his resolve, but with each step, a chilling uncertainty loomed. Was he truly ready to face the judgments of those who had always looked down on him? He sought to silence the noise threatening to derail him. Gripping the prototype folder, he pushed through the building's entrance, his heartbeat matching the pace as he made his way toward the office. With the threshold ahead, a new question loomed. Would this moment of truth elevate him or seal his fate in obscurity? Jake stood at the office door, each breath feeling like he was hoarding air for a critical moment. The sleek, modern space of Thompson's design firm hardly felt welcoming. Instead, it towered around him like a fortress, filled with the whispers of expectations and the weight of his past failures. Uncertainty gnawed at the edges of his confidence, his heart racing as he imagined judgment laced in Thompson's gaze. With a final inhalation, he stepped inside, greeted by the buzz of a workplace steeped in creativity. The expansiveness was palpable, with colleagues huddled over sketches and digital screens illuminating what could be. Yet, the very vitality that inspired others felt suffocating to him. Jake clenched the prototype folder tightly, using the sensation to anchor his resolve. His heart skipped as Thompson looked up, surprise mingling with interest etched across his features. There was a fleeting moment of recognition, a flicker that could mean either curiosity or disdain. Jake quickly moved to introduce himself, but the words stumbled from his lips. His voice betrayed him, quivering under the weight of his ambition and the gravity of their shared past. "Jake. He caught his breath, steadying himself. "I'm here to present the prototype." Thompson nodded, gesturing toward a conference room with a wave of his hand. The invitation felt heavy and almost mocking, like a test designed to uncover the truth beneath Jake's carefully assembled facade. As they walked, Jake's thoughts spiraled into a torrent of what-ifs. Would he convey his ideas with clarity? Would his passion resonate, or would it fall flat against the cool professionalism of the design team? Inside the room, Jake set the folder down on the table and took one last moment to collect his thoughts. The sleek lines of his vehicle design stared up at him, echoing his dreams and the countless hours of labor behind each stroke of his pencil. Taking a deep breath, he opened the folder, revealing the sun-kissed renderings that encapsulated his vision. "Today, I present not just a vehicle, but a movement," he asserted, his voice now simmering with conviction. He spoke about eco-friendliness, sustainability, family values, and the potential to ignite a shift in consumer consciousness. Each word resonated more deeply than he anticipated, as if the very air infused energy into his intentions. As he articulated his vision for the car, its solar capabilities, cutting-edge design, and user-friendly features, Jake noticed Thompson's expression shift from neutrality to intrigue. Questions followed, sharp and pointed, but they didn't feel like barriers. Instead, they became invitations to elaborate on his design, to delve deeper into the concepts he had nurtured. The conversation flowed, each exchange dissipating layers of anxiety. Jake felt momentum building, a current of belief surging through him as he deftly navigated inquiries. For the first time, he grasped the profound importance of truly believing in his ideas. The clear articulation seemed to summon them into tangible existence. But lurking beneath the surface remained remnants of doubt. What if this recognition was fleeting? What if Thompson's interest could vanish as swiftly as it appeared? Realizing this was a test not only of his prototype but of his very worth, Jake wrestled with insecurity. An echo of his past weighed heavily, reminding him of all that he had fought to prove. As the meeting concluded, Thompson leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful and somewhat contemplative. "There's potential in this, Jake," he said finally, a slight smile hinting at approval. "But I want to see how far your commitment goes. Are you ready to dig deeper?" Jake's heart raced at the suggestion, the challenge igniting a spark within him. Questions flooded in. Did he have what it took to take another leap? Could he sustain the energy necessary to navigate this new phase? The answer loomed near, but then came a final, unexpected twist. "Your mother didn't she work on something similar?" Thompson's question felt like a spotlight, illuminating an aspect of Jake's life he had tucked away. Unbidden, memories unfurled of late-night conversations, of designs shared and dreams spoken aloud. He realized that this moment was rooted not just in his ambitions but also in his mother's unyielding spirit. Jake hesitated, weighing his words carefully. This revelation could lead to new insights or stir the depths of vulnerability he had avoided addressing. With a steady voice, he prepared to dive into the complicated legacy of his mother, a discussion that could redefine the trajectory of his journey. But would reflecting on her wisdom strengthen his case or threaten to unravel him entirely? Jake gripped the edges of the table, his mind racing, as Thompson's question hung in the air, charged with implications he couldn't ignore. Memories of his mother flooded back, vivid images battling for dominance against the rising tide of anxiety. Could he bring her legacy into this moment without losing the essence of his own identity? "She did," he finally replied, his voice almost a whisper. In her own way, she was a pioneer, always looking for innovative solutions to tackle everyday issues. Her projects focused on sustainable design long before it became a trend. The words began to flow more easily, sparking a tide of emotion he hadn't anticipated. Thompson nodded, eyes narrowing slightly. "And you? What is your connection to that legacy?" Jake felt a shift in the dynamic. A confrontation was emerging, one that tested his resolve and forced him to confront his own aspirations alongside his mother's shadow. "It became part of my identity," he admitted, pulling strength from those late-night conversations with her, where they dissected designs far beyond their means. "But I've always felt distant from it. Like I was merely living in her brilliance rather than building my own." As he spoke, Jake sensed an honesty surfacing, cutting through the fog of uncertainty that had clouded his ambition. It was liberating to speak about his struggles, especially in a space where creativity thrived. He was learning the power of vulnerability, understanding that owning his narrative was the only way forward. Thompson leaned forward, intrigued. You've internalized that distance. Why? That question pierced deeper than Jake expected. He thought about the countless times he had tried to step out from his mother's shadow, struggling to carve an identity separate from the legacy that loomed over him. Because I was afraid of not living up to it, he admitted. I feared that every job I took, every opportunity one chased, would be seen as just another faded echo of her achievements. Jake realized this wasn't merely about a car design. It was a struggle of self-acceptance. He could either drown in the pressure to outshine her or embrace the strength of their shared passion for innovation. Thompson's eyes softened as if he had recognized something vital. What if you use that connection as a tool, rather than a weight? The suggestion was like a flicker of light breaking through a dense fog. Could his mother's history empower his vision instead of hindering it? You're suggesting that my narrative, not just the vehicle design, might have the potential to resonate? Absolutely, Thompson affirmed. People connect with stories. Let them see who you are, the journey you've carried. Your mother's work could complement your vision rather than compete with it. Let it inspire your prototype and shape your brand. Jake felt the tension that had tightened in his chest start to loosen. This wasn't a mere challenge, it was a call to weave both his legacy and ambitions into a cohesive tapestry that could evoke passion not just from teams but also from potential stakeholders. Determined, he collected his thoughts, articulating how he envisioned integrating elements of his mother's principles within his vehicle. What if I design a parent-friendly interface that echoes her sustainable solutions, promoting a future that encourages families to cut back on fossil fuel usage while fostering connectivity? His voice gained strength with each syllable spoken. Thompson's expression shifted to one of approval. This is a solid direction, Jake. It seems you are starting to discover the depth of your potential. As the conversation drew to a close, Jake felt invigorated, yet aware that the path ahead would require digging into his dedication and challenging every ounce of doubt ingrained in him. The session had unearthed many layers, yet he knew there were more to explore. What's next? He asked, anticipation mingling with anxiety. Next, you prepare a proposal that reflects your vision, your story. This is just the beginning. Thompson's eyes bore into him, the weight of unspoken expectations lingering. You'll need to confront the industry too. Are you ready for that? Jake swallowed hard, the reality of this new challenge swirling. Facing the industry meant battling not only external judgment but the internal struggle that had simmered for years. But was he ready to embrace not just potential but vulnerability? As the door closed behind him, Jake resolved to face not just his dreams but the uncharted territory of self-discovery. The path ahead would demand clarity, honesty, and a reconciled identity intertwined with his mother's legacy. With a burgeoning sense of purpose, he took the first step forward only to realize that his greatest challenge lay ahead, the upcoming pitch with industry veterans who might not understand his vision yet. What he didn't know was how deep the scars of past critiques ran and how ready he would have to be to rewrite his story once and for all. Jake stepped into the dimly lit conference room, the air thick with anticipation and the scent of coffee that felt both familiar and daunting. The long table was flanked by executives whose sharp suits and critical gazes might easily cut through his resolve. He could feel his heart pounding, echoing the doubt he had begun to wrestle with in the previous weeks. Yet, there was an ember of determination kindled within him, a flicker urging him to share not just a proposal but a piece of himself. As he arranged his notes, Jake couldn't help but reflect on his growth since meeting with Thompson. The lingering anxiety of stepping into his mother's shadow was still present but began to transform into a quiet assertiveness. He had realized that this was not simply about validating his designs, it was about honoring a lineage while forging a new path. He opened the pitch with a brief personal story, recounting how his mother's innovative spirit had infused his dreams since childhood. The executives, some glancing at their phones, stirred slightly at his familial touch. This felt like the moment of true connection he had longed for, where personal narratives mingled with professional ambitions. As he moved into the technical details, discussing the integration of sustainable design into his car, a familiar voice broke through. Marissa, the sharp-tongued marketing director, interrupted him. This all sounds great in theory, Jake, but how do you plan to convince consumers that this idea is revolutionary and not just a repackaged feature? Her skepticism was palpable, and the room went silent, every eye on Jake, awaiting his response. Panic surged briefly, threatening to undermine the confidence he had begun to cultivate. But instead of retreating, he recognized this challenge as a crucible moment. "I believe it's about more than just features, Marissa," he replied, his voice steady. "It's about a shift in how we perceive our responsibilities as parents and innovators. My vision isn't merely aimed at selling a car, it's a movement towards more family-focused and environmentally mindful choices that can reshape the industry." The words spilled from him, fueled by both his passion and the countless nights of deliberation. He embraced that instinctive need to share his truth, and as he explained how the design would not only cater to families but also prioritize sustainable practices, the executives began to lean in, their initial detachment slowing giving way to curiosity. Marissa raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. "And how will you deal with the cost? Sustainable practices can often drive up production. What will you do if your target price doesn't hit the market?" Jake hesitated for just a moment, recognizing the delicate balance he had to maintain. This was not just a financial equation, it was a pledge to innovate without sacrificing integrity. "It won't be easy, but we'll start by collaborating with sustainable suppliers and investing in technology that lowers our carbon footprint. There's a financial upside in the long-term savings for families, something they'll appreciate as prices of fossil fuels continue to rise." He could feel the room shift in tone. Questions came in rapid succession, clarification requests that pushed him to refine his ideas on the spot. It was exhilarating, a dance of intellect and conviction. Yet, somewhere deep inside him, the fear that had long haunted him still lurked, eager to undermine his emerging confidence but now felt like a weight he could hold rather than be crushed by. As the conversation began to draw to a close, Jake sensed a critical moment had arrived. "Let us not just sell a car," he urged passionately. "Let us create a community around a future we can be proud of. It's time to inspire a generation of conscious consumers. I want to invite you to be part of something transformative." Silence enveloped the room. It wasn't just about the proposal, it was about identity, responsibility, and pursuit of a vision that melded with personal legacy. Jake could see the gears turning among the executives. A flicker of recognition crossing their faces. But just as he felt their resolve shifting, a new question loomed, unasked yet ever present. Would they truly embrace this vision, or would the industry's hesitance to change entrap him once again? Yet perhaps the most crucial question remained within himself. Was he ready to lead not just with the strength of his ideas but with the weight of his past? As he gathered his materials and prepared to leave, he knew the real pitching would only truly begin beyond these walls. Jake's heart raced, the battle was just starting, and he could almost feel the walls of expectation closing in again. Jake stepped out of the conference room, the weight of the executive's gazes still pressing against his back. The tension had been palpable, yet the conversation had opened a crack in the door of possibility. Outside, the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, and he took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the scent of fresh air tainted by the lingering anxiety of corporate life. With a renewed sense of purpose, he made his way to his small office space, the walls adorned with sketches and prototypes of his designs. Each drawing represented hours of labor and love, pieces of a vision that had finally been articulated in that room. But now the challenge was clear, he needed to turn this momentum into action. As Jake settled at his desk, he felt a swell of determination mixed with uncertainty. His mind raced through every question he had faced: Marissa's skepticism, the executive's resistance. Each inquiry demanded a confident answer, and for the first time, he sensed that he wasn't merely defending his proposal, he was standing up for a powerful idea that could influence the future of the industry. Yet the shadow of doubt followed him closely, the fear of not soaring high enough to meet expectations tugging at his resolve. He reflected on Marissa's comments regarding cost and marketability. To be a true innovator, he needed more than just a passionate pitch, he needed data, strategy, and a pinpointed marketing narrative that could answer every concern head-on. He opened his laptop, thoughts transforming into a plan. With each keystroke, he began researching innovative materials and suppliers, reaching into areas of sustainability that had previously seemed too ambitious. He remembered his mother's tenacity, how she faced challenges with unwavering resolve. It was this legacy he wished to harness, not as a direct comparison, but as inspiration. What she would do in moments of doubt. She wouldn't let fear paralyze her. She would adapt, find new paths, and push forward, even if it meant forging alliances with unlikely partners. The clock ticked audibly in the silent office, but Jake was in the zone. The fundamental question was whether he could look beyond the obstacles and present this vision to the world. His hands moved rapidly across the keyboard, outlining a marketing strategy that spoke directly to families, contextualizing sustainability not as an expense but as a long-term investment in the future. How could he engage consumers emotionally? How could he transform their perceptions of responsibility? After hours of brainstorming and drafting, he leaned back in his chair, exhausted yet invigorated. The documents on his screen were raw but full of potential and incomplete vision that he intended to refine over the coming days. He felt a stirring of hope. The idea had transformed from an abstract dream into a tangible plan of action. Yet, a gnawing question emerged: would he be able to maintain this momentum when faced with upcoming hurdles? Just as he made a mental note to reach out for feedback from his allies, his phone buzzed on the desk. A message from Thompson flashed on the screen, simple yet loaded with potential. "Can we meet tomorrow? I have some insights I think you'd find valuable." Jake's pulse quickened. Thompson had always had a knack for seeing beyond conventional structures. Could he be the catalyst that helped him fully realize his ambitions? Yet, alongside this inviting prospect lay the nagging concern: what if Thompson's insight revealed vulnerabilities in Jake's plan he hadn't anticipated? With the clock ticking away and the stakes feeling higher than ever, Jake's mind wrestled with conflicting emotions. Hope battled uncertainty, ambition contended with trepidation. Tomorrow would lead him to a pivotal choice: either embrace the challenge or risk allowing his fears to dictate his future. As he switched off his laptop and wore his jacket, a flicker of determination ignited deep within him. The trajectory of his mother's legacy might depend on his next move, but could he unlock the strength to navigate that path, or would fear of her shadow paralyze him just when he needed to soar? The next day at Thompson's office loomed closer, and with it, the moment of truth drew near. Jake arrived at Thompson's office precisely on time, his heart pulsing against his ribs as he stepped into the sleek, minimalist space. The walls were adorned with inspiring quotes about innovation and bold leadership, but today, they felt more like a gauntlet than a source of motivation. He had rehearsed his pitch 100 times, but the reality of the meeting was another beast entirely. Thompson greeted him with a firm handshake and an encouraging smile, motioning for Jake to sit. As they settled into their seats, Jake sensed that this encounter could make or break the vision he had carefully crafted. He recalled the whirlwind of emotions from the previous day, the heady mix of excitement and fear that danced within him, and the narrative he had developed. But would it be enough? "Jake," Thompson began, his tone serious yet friendly. "I've seen your work and I know you have something special brewing. But I'd like to provide some perspective. Let us talk about your market strategy." Jake nodded, feeling the heat of anticipation on his skin. He launched into a detailed explanation of his plan, citing recent trends in sustainability while illuminating the emotional narrative he envisioned for families. He could see Thompson nodding occasionally, but the executive's eyes held a scrutinizing glance that made Jake's stomach twist. As Jake spoke about consumer engagement and social responsibility, he caught himself slipping into familiar jargon. Was he losing the essence of his original vision, or merely dressing it up in corporate speak? Would this strategy truly resonate, or was he faking confidence, a masquerade to hide his inner turmoil? "Let me stop you there," Thompson interjected, raising a hand and pausing Jake's thought process. "You're passionate, and that's commendable. But do you really understand your audience?" The question lingered in the air, heavy and challenging. Jake's defenses kicked in. "I've done the research, I know what they want." "No, Jake," Thompson replied, leaning forward, a look of earnestness tracing his features. "Did you ever think about why they might hesitate to invest in a sustainable product? Think of it not just in terms of data, but as a personal narrative. You need to tap into why they care." Thompson's words struck a nerve. Jake's inner voice immediately echoed Marissa's previous doubts about marketability. pushing him into a corner where he was confronted not just with insights but with the realization that his narrative had fallen short. As they continued to talk, Thompson dissected each component of the strategy, turning over ideas like rocks to reveal the contents underneath. Jake felt vulnerable, exposed in a way that left him both anxious and invigorated. He began to see how layers of assumptions had shielded him from deeper connections with his audience. "Do you have any personal stories that resonate?" Thompson's inquiry was pointed. "What drives your passion?" Authenticity can bridge that gap between innovation and consumer trust. Jake paused, digging through his mind for the connection he had been glossing over. His mother's dedication to community work, the memories of working alongside her in volunteer programs. Was it possible that his own personal journey could frame his professional aspirations? The realization simmered to the surface. His vision wasn't just an abstract form of corporate responsibility. It was a reflection of his mother's enduring belief that lasting change required personal investment and emotional genuine engagement. With newfound clarity, Jake felt the surge of determination return. "I can incorporate my journey into the narrative. My mom's life was all about making choices that benefited future generations. I should reposition my pitch around how these products embody that legacy." Thompson's expression shifted, a flicker of admiration crossing his features. "Exactly. Now that's the authenticity I'm talking about." As their conversation deepened, Jake no longer felt like a candidate defending his proposal. He felt like an innovator claiming a space in the industry that was entirely his own. But just as he began to build this momentum, Thompson leaned back, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Tell me, Jake, if the executives push back again, what's your strategy to address their resistance?" The question hung in the air, a challenge waiting to be met. Jake's confidence was high, but now a new layer of doubt began to bubble. Would he truly have the resolve to stand against such institutional inertia? The clock on the wall seemed to mock him as the realization set in. Uncertainty would always linger. It would be his understanding of the narrative and his emotional resilience that would define this journey of both personal and professional transformation. Yet, as the meeting progressed, Jake had an inkling that the path ahead was about to steepen even further, prompting the question, would he be able to confront the impending conflicts, or would he allow self-doubt to steal the opportunity he had fought so hard to create? Jake's thoughts raced even after he left Thompson's office. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as he navigated the busy corridor, and he couldn't shake the weight of Thompson's question about resistance. How would he handle the executives if they rejected his vision again? Each step felt heavier as doubts crept into his mind, wrapping around his thoughts like heavy chains. He reached his desk, cluttered with papers and coffee-stained notes, a stark contrast to the polished environment of Thompson's office. Jake dropped into the chair, running a hand through his hair. The moment he had envisioned where he would present his groundbreaking idea had sparked not a wave of confidence but a flood of uncertainty. Resilience was his goal, but how could he summon it without a clear plan? Flipping through his notes, he tried to concentrate on the data Thompson had asked him to dig deeper into. Yet, the notion of authenticity reverberated through his mind. To truly connect, he needed a plan that utilized his narrative effectively, a blending of personal history and professional aspiration. But what if his story wasn't enough? What if it fell flat in front of the executives? A voice inside him echoed Marissa's concerns about marketability, whispering doubt where there should be reassurance. In search of inspiration, he glanced out the window, watching families walk by in the late afternoon sun. The vibrant commotion resonated with what he wanted to create: a narrative of hope, sustainability, and purpose. Suddenly, it clicked. If he could craft his pitch like a story, one that engaged shared values and emotional experiences, perhaps that would be the bridge to the executives' hearts. Moments at Thompson's office had left him charged, yet he couldn't ignore the looming fear of rejection that gripped him. With a renewed sense of urgency, Jake opened a blank document and began typing furiously. He recounted weekends spent volunteering alongside his mother, where her unwavering passion for community and sustainability illuminated the path for others. Each anecdote unfolded like a layer of understanding, revealing a correlation between their shared values and the consumer's desires for authenticity and impact. But just as clarity washed over him, another wave of doubt crashed in. What if, despite his integration of personal stories, the executives remained unmoved. What if their focus remained purely on profit margins? In that moment, Jake glanced flickeringly at the clock again, the second hand ticking like a metronome, measuring his rising stress. He leaned back in his chair and took a deep breath, allowing the memories of his mother's dedication to ground him. This wasn't just about the pitch, it was a testament to her life's work and the next generation's future. He needed to embrace this pressure, not succumb to it. Jake remembered the strength his mother exuded in the face of adversities. One particular instance surfaced with crystal clarity. It was during a community fundraiser that had nearly collapsed due to lack of funding. She had rallied the volunteers, sharing her own fears yet urging them to focus on the difference they could make. That moment taught him that vulnerability could inspire resilience. If he could channel this experience into his narrative, perhaps it would shift the conversation. Determined, he crafted a new section in his pitch, one that could frame sustainability not just as a product but as a legacy. It would hold an emotional resonance, enticing the executives not merely to buy into a product but to commit to a vision that would resonate across generations. But with Don's approach came another realization: confronting the executives would require a shift in his own mindset. Doubt could either suffocate or elevate his resolve. His determination had to become stronger than the anxieties that lingered like shadows. This would require practice, strategy, and vulnerability. As he read through the revised narrative, he understood he needed to rehearse it, prepare not only for acceptance but also for rejection. Jake's resolve hardened. He felt the stakes skyrocket. The next meeting loomed like an immovable barrier. Would he be able to articulate his revised narrative and withstand the pressure? Or would self-doubt ultimately derail his ambitions? A new challenge began to form in his mind, his heart racing with the prospect of the confrontation. The preparation required would test his newfound insights, demanding more than he had previously envisioned. What would it take to not just present, but persuade? His new thoughts circled back to Thompson's original challenge, to truly understand and engage with the audience. With that realization, a blend of excitement and dread coursed through him as he prepared for one last crucial re-engineering of his approach. Would this final iteration galvanize his message in a way that could not just be heard, but felt? Jake stood outside the imposing glass doors of Thompson Motors, the echoes of his footsteps swallowed by the silent anticipation that filled the air. He had come a long way since that fateful day in his auto repair shop, and now, with his revised pitch in hand, he was ready to face what lay ahead. The culmination of sleepless nights spent working on designs, refining his narrative, and embracing his fears had all led to this moment. He was ready to confront the executives with a story that wasn't just about a vehicle, but about a vision, a legacy passed down from his mother. With a deep breath, Jake entered the conference room. The familiar faces of the executives were poised and attentive, some reviewing notes and others engaged in quiet conversation. Yet what used to provoke apprehension now sparked a healthy confidence. He was no longer the uncertain mechanic inventing products in isolation. He was an innovator prepared to share a movement. "Thank you for gathering today," Jake began, his voice steady, resonating with the conviction that had sprung from countless moments of reflection. He could feel the anticipation build as he continued. "Today, I'm not here just to present a prototype. I'm here to share a legacy, a vision that I believe can change the way we think about family automobiles." The room quieted, curiosity replacing the atmosphere of routine. Jake took a moment to absorb the energy in the air, then opened with a personal story that felt both grounding and uplifting, the tale of his mother, an engineer who believed in the power of innovation as a tool for creating a better future. He spoke of afternoons spent sketching designs with her, inspired by her vision of sustainable vehicles that could benefit generations to come. The legacy they built, he explained, was about function merging with purpose, designed for families who cared about the world in which they lived. As he transitioned to discussing his prototype, detailing its eco-friendly materials, innovative designs, and user-centric technology, Jake felt the burden of uncertainty lift. Rather than merely sharing numbers and metrics, he was weaving a narrative that tugged at the heartstrings while addressing tangible needs. After fielding a few questions, including some challenging critiques, he stood ready to articulate the deeper connection his vision had with consumers' desires for authenticity and responsibility. "Your concerns about cost and marketability are valid," Jake acknowledged, drawing on the criticisms thrown at him previously. But this is not merely about producing a vehicle, it is about creating a cultural shift. We can build a brand that resonates with families, allowing them to invest not just in a car but in a sustainable future. The executives leaned in, their expressions shifting from skepticism to intrigue. Thompson met his gaze, nodding in approval at the compelling nature of their dialogue. The transformation that Jake had undergone was evident. He was no longer merely defending a concept, he was advocating for a fundamental change in the industry. After wrapping up his presentation, Jake felt a sense of closure wash over him, an empowering realization of how far he had come. His fears of inadequacy had been met with a force of courage that rendered them insignificant. The room buzzed with discussions about the next steps, brainstorms about potential marketing strategies, and even collaborative ideas that could bridge his design with the company's existing framework. "You've crafted something meaningful here, Jake," Thompson remarked, a proud smile etching across his face. "Your story adds significant value to this proposal. We should bring you in for the next round of discussions. We're interested in pursuing this further." The weight of relief cascaded over him, a tangible validation of the journey he had undertaken. Jake had conquered not only the external challenges presented by the executives but had also made strides within himself. He had transformed the fear tied to his mother's legacy into a source of strength and inspiration. Walking out of the conference room, he felt as though he had stepped into a new version of himself. His identity as a mechanic was not lost but reframed as someone who pioneers change, committed to innovation with a purpose. He had proved to not just the executives but to himself that embracing vulnerability could yield profound understanding and growth. Standing beneath the sunlight, Jake took a moment to breathe deeply, grateful for the newfound confidence coursing through him. He had forged pathways of possibility that had once felt insurmountable. Their faces, once shadowed with doubt, now reflected excitement. In that moment, he realized that each struggle was a stepping stone toward discovering the fullness of his potential. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Jake felt prepared, equipped with not just the tools for his design but also the courage to rise beyond self-imposed limitations. He was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, daring to challenge the industry, to lift families' dreams, and to honor his mother's legacy through relentless innovation. He left the building with a renewed purpose, transformed and resolute. This was his moment. And he wouldn't be looking back. Now, it's your turn. You need to subscribe now to our channel to keep up with transformative stories just like Jake's, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. If you found inspiration in this journey of growth, leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Your reactions matter. Join us as we uncover more stories of personal triumph.